the 50s and 60s, 70s. We stopped at about 73 or 4. So now a lot of people have never even heard the tapes.
I'm wondering if Gene and Phyllis, the folks who walked over with you, are still out there, and if they'd like to come in and sit in. A bill on aid.
Now, I'm referred to you as Jack, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, we're rolling.
Okay. And if you'll give me... Okay, great. Thank you. All right. You're rolling. He's ready. I'm ready. 3, 2, and 1. Bob Richards, two-time Olympic gold medalist in the pole vault, a number of accolades for your athletic prowess, sportscaster, motivational speaker, the list goes on and on. We're so happy to talk to you here on the...
I've got a good public relations.
You sure do. Well, you've just been inducted into the Lincoln Academy of Illinois, a singular sort of honor for Illinoisans of distinction, and we're very pleased to be talking to you on that special day.
And for me, it's probably the greatest honor of my entire life. I've always been a student of Abraham Lincoln and read all the books, Carl Sandburg, Gore Vidal, all of them on this great hero of mine. And in a way, I feel like I'm a little bit of the embodiment of Honest Abe and the hard-working guy. But what a thrill to be named part of the Lincoln philosophy.
And here in the Illinois State Library, where we're taping, all those books by Sandburg and all those folks are right around us. So we're literally steeped in the tradition and the history today as we do
The one I like the most is Gore Vidal, because he made him come alive. It was almost like Lincoln was talking to you, and you could see him walking down through the halls and so forth.
Well, let's get started in a life that has so many honors and so many wonderful experiences in it. You are a native Illinoisan from the Champaign area?
Born in Champaign-Urbana in probably the most wonderful time of the city. I mean, it was an atmosphere of greatness. Harold Osborne, who had won 2 gold medals in the Olympics, was my coach. And the University of Illinois, with the 5th largest library in the world, I was able to study there. And the teachers, the friends, the people, it was just wonderful. I think I owe everything to having been born in Champaign-Urbana, in Illinois, where what I call the atmosphere of greatness was all around you if you were willing to respond.
What were the values that you picked up early in life that drove you to, you're a man of average stature, you make no bones about that, but to do the kinds of things you did takes an incredible amount of willpower.
Well, I was probably the most unlikely kid to ever be an Olympic champion ever. When I was 15, I weighed 91 pounds, 5 feet tall, and was slow. I mean, just think. And of course, with all the other great athletes all around me, the Lou Boudreaux and the Grangers of the past and so forth, you'd have never thought that this little kid sneaking into the stadium and watching these great athletes perform. But inadvertently and unconsciously, they gave me a dream. I wanted to be like them. I would play on the little parking lot there in Champaign on Hickory Street, that I was in the great stadiums of the world playing football and throwing the javelin and pole vaulting and hitting baseballs. And I mean, my brothers were great athletes, and they helped me. And the school, I remember I played at Champaign High, and in junior high, my feet were too small for the football shoes, so the coach finally bought me a pair of football shoes after I was playing barefooted for a while. But anyway, what I'm trying to say is, when I came back to the University of Illinois on a scholarship in 1945, I was in an atmosphere of greatness again. We won the NC2A in track and field. We won the Rose Bowl. It was the greatest collection of athletes ever in Illinois history, as far as I'm concerned. And we were 2 times national collegiate champions. But I went out to pole vault one day. I'd come from a little school in Virginia. And there were 3 guys at the University of Illinois jumping a foot higher than I'd ever jumped in my life. And I almost wanted to go back to that little school and get out of this tough competition. But I learned one of the greatest lessons of life. Competition makes you. And you must rise to the competition. Don't run from it. Let them pull you out. Every great person has a competitor who pulls him out.
You liked playing a lot of different sports when you were young. I've read about tumbling, diving, basketball, football. You were a quarterback, is that right?
Yeah, Champaign High. We were state champions one year.
What led you? What got you interested in the pole vault? I think it was age 12.
Well, it's the strangest thing. You say gymnastics. Well, I was walking on my hands then, and I could do 39 chin-ups. I was only about 10 or 11. But anyway, a coach came by and said, "Richards, you look like you can pole vault. We need a pole vaulter. Go out and jump." I jumped 6 feet 9 inches and won the meet. Now, that's not even a good high jump today. But I fell in love with something. And when you fall in love with something, you don't have workouts. It becomes kind of a magnificent obsession. You can't stop training. Well, I ran across the street, had a telephone pole and a tree with nails in it, and I put up a little bamboo, and I would jump onto the ground, onto mattresses, anything. I would use a tumbling thing with 2 big steel bars, and I'd put the crossbar up there. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is, I couldn't stop jumping. And from that time, age 13 on, I reckon I've spent 10,000 hours pole vaulting. And it took me to 3 Olympics, 13 years on top, and it's just the greatest thing for me. I often say this, what God can do with a stick. Well, here's a little old pole vault that took me all over the world. I've spoken in 9,000 communities, been on television, and been to Asia as a Goodwill ambassador, gone to South America twice in Pan Am Games, etc. It's just been wonderful for me, Jack. It's the springboard into life. And then it got me a scholarship at Illinois, and later on I got a fellowship. I won the Big Ten medal for scholarship in athletics, and I got a scholarship in philosophy, fellowship. And boy, it just changed my life.
We better stop for a second because we had a light just die on us. Oh, great. Hang on. Can't go without you. Got speed on both cameras? Okay. All right. As you were saying that the pole vault was the, let me just pick
springboard.
It up. Yeah. The pole vault was the springboard to so many things in your life.
Yeah. I don't know how to say this, but as a Goodwill ambassador for the State Department, they wanted me to go over and just jump in the Cultural Affairs program all over Asia. And I had the most wonderful time teaching kids how to pole vault and high jump and long jump. And they'd haul me out of the stadium on their shoulders, singing Home on the Range and that kind of thing. And what it taught me, and this is kind of funny, but I think you can put love and your philosophy of life into sports. Sports is a universal language that you can almost talk to anyone with that language. Science, music, sports. But anyway, in the Olympic Games in Helsinki, I remember after I won the Olympics, a Russian came up and threw his arm around me. I hugged him back. Well, some people criticize me for that. But you see, I believe in hugging. I believe in love. I believe love is the greatest power in the world. And the Olympic ideology of peace through sports. I just love that idea, the Greek ideal. And sports has been a way for me to love people around the world, and of course gives you confidence. It taught me to speak. I mean, all kinds of things. It was just wonderful.
There was a time, though, in your very early life when things might not have turned out quite that way. In doing some of the readings that I've learned that you were at one time running with kind of a rough crowd.
Yeah, rough bunch. They weren't anything like the rough bunches of today, but they didn't have any goals. And, when kids don't have goals and they just drift among the peers and whoever has the wildest idea, everyone does it. Well, I was in kind of a bunch of guys that didn't have many dreams, or they didn't worry about education or books or anything like that. But I got converted, and here I owe so much to a young preacher named Merlin Garber, who taught me about God, and I started reading the Bible and so forth. But more importantly, I started reading, period. I fell in love with learning, with books, and he guided me and helped me read the great books. I've read about 10,000 books in my life, mostly on airplanes, going from spot to spot. But I can tell you, when you don't have a dream, when you don't have goals, when you're just drifting, that can be the sorriest thing in your life if you don't get out of it.
How did your faith change your life at that point?
Well, it's the strangest thing, but when I found God, I had the feeling that I had to do my best. Now, for example, when I would pray in sports, I'd never pray to win. I remember Dr. Taft, University of Illinois, saying to me, well, Bob, do you think that God favored you over Don Laz, who's a fine Christian boy, and that's what? Well, no. But I do feel this. God enables you to do your best in your universe called you, that if you have any reference to the Almighty at all, or the universe, whatever you call it, that power can help you. And I believe that. And, of course, the kingdom of God is within you. Well, when I went over the crossbar in Helsinki, I had quietly prayed, oh, God, help me do my... Anyway, against the wind and everything, when I took off, it was like inside my soul something screamed out, push! And I went over the crossbar and won the Olympics. Well, now, that's not God pulling me out and winning. That's you pulling out the best in you because of a relationship with a divine principle. I don't know if that makes sense to you or not, but it does to me.
You went to a church school at one point
Yeah.
before coming back to the University of Illinois. What brought you back to the University of Illinois? Scholarships?
Yes, a tremendous scholarship with unbelievable amounts of money, $50 a year to go to school. And at that time, that was an enormous amount of money. But, you know, at that time, they paid for a child's education. And all the veterans coming back from the war, it's amazing. I don't know why we can't do that, what we did then. But I came back. Leo Johnson, the track coach, gave me a $50 scholarship. And, man, I joined Herb McKinley and Dyke Edelman and Buddy Young and Walker and Rayburg and the Toomeys, and we won the national championship. But it made me, because, boy, I got in with the best athletes in the world. And there was a camaraderie, and, you know, they made you do your best. Every day you had to compete to even make the team. So it was a great experience for me.
When did it dawn on you, though, that you might be Olympic material?
Well, I had finished 6th place in an AAU meet, and the first 5 guys didn't want to go to Europe. So they were taking a trip to Europe, and we went to Portugal and all through Scandinavia and Copenhagen. And in Copenhagen, Denmark, in a meet, I went over a crossbar at the Olympic record, and I went 6 inches over it. And like a bolt out of the blue, it hit me. You can win the Olympics if you train hard, if you work. By the way, that's one of the things I got from my Midwestern heritage, that if you're willing to work, you know, people kid me about Wheaties, but I always say, a bowl of Wheaties every day and 10,000 hours of hard work will get you anything you want. But anyway, I was in love with a dream. I started thinking I could win the Olympic gold in 1947. And in 48 I missed, got a third, but in 52 I won the gold and then repeated again in 56. But once you get a dream like that, it's hard to imagine what happens to you. There are no negatives. You're only believing you can. And I think that's the secret of life. It's a little bit like the atom, you know. At the center is a positive. All the negative electrons run around that atom. But if you center your life in the positive and don't listen to the negatives, it's amazing what happens to your life.
And we all know what happens when the energy that's in an atom.
Oh, yeah. You know, just think of that. They say records can't be broken and all that. Well, tell me what the power of an atom is and how many atoms are in a muscle, and then the mental power, the willpower.
At this point, where this is 1948, you won the bronze in London. Right after that, now, what happened with your schooling, and where were you going at that point before 52?
Well, I had the most unbelievable opportunity. You talk about an atmosphere of greatness in the 40s and 50s. All the boys came back. 11 million men came back from World War II. 11 million men in uniform. And they had a GI Bill of Rights. So 20,000 of them descended on the University of Illinois. And they didn't have enough teachers. So I had a master's degree in philosophy. I was able to teach at the University of Illinois when I was 22 years of age, with a master's degree. I was an instructor in sociology. So, for example, people like Robert Novak, Gene Shalit was in my sociology class.
Well, I've met Robert Novak.
Yeah.
Yes.
He was in my social. Well, anyway.
Another Lincoln laureate, too.
Oh, is he?
Yes, he is.
I didn't know that.
Exactly.
Of course, he should have. He was under my teaching in that social. But he's a conservative and I'm a liberal. But anyway, it's funny. But the greatest opportunity I got to teach at Illinois. I went off to seminary and taught a course in philosophy of religion. Came back to Illinois. But then I was training for the Olympics. So I should have gone on for my doctorate. It's the biggest mistake I ever made. But in California, we'd gone out there for some meets. You can train all year round. So I went out there, taught in a small school called Laverne College, and trained for the Olympics. And I won in 52, and I was out there when I won in 56.
Now, in 1950, you were in on the founding of the Fellowship of Christian Athletes.
Well, right about then, maybe a little later. Mm-hmm. See, what happened was, because I became known as an athlete, the schools would open up and let me come in and talk about dreaming a dream and working hard and living clean. No drugs, no booze, no smoking. Live clean, you know. Well, the schools all let me in, and I'd give 1-hour talks, and believe it or not, they'd have Bob Richards Day, and they'd wear ties. I spoke to over 9 million high school kids. Well, the FCA was trying to get in the schools. Well, I was the only guy out there that was in the schools, so to speak. So they kind of used the leverage that I had to get FCA started. And my concept of FCA was that it wouldn't be strictly a religious thing, but it would be more or less a dream thing where athletes would get together and talk about how you succeed and the work you've got to do and the techniques you learn, using your head and developing new strategies. That it would be a fellowship of athletic. Well, I don't know how to describe it, but now it's gone over to the extreme on the religious side. I think it's better to keep it in balance myself.
1952, going to Helsinki. What is it like to represent the United States of America in the world's premier athletic venue?
Well, you've almost described it right there. If that realization hits you. After I'd won my last jump, I practically went back up over the crossbar again. The Russian hugged me, and Lundberg of Sweden hugged me, and Don Laz, my teammate from Illinois, hugged me, and it was just so wonderful. But then they have the ceremony, and you're walking out there, and then this is 10,000 hours of work. This is 12 years of concentrated work. And all of a sudden, the Star Spangled Banner starts playing. Whew, you talk about something. And the tears just start flowing, and you realize, my God, I've been able to represent my country in the greatest sport in the world. And you sob. You can't stop it. It's the feeling of pride and belonging, and it's hard to explain. See, I've been all over the world. I've seen starving people. I've seen other political ideologies, and this magic that we have in America, where there is food and where there are opportunities and where you can be what you want to be. You can be a little stuttering runt and become a good speaker. You can be 5 feet tall and dream a dream of going to the Olympics. And ever since then, I've just been talking about these people in America who've had that kind of dream. Well, when you realize that you're there and that you're representing this great achievement, success psychology of what we call America, it's a tremendous feeling.
Now, we're talking in those days of jumps in the 15-foot area. Is that about right? Now, today they're going higher than that. But what kind of equipment? Let's talk equipment between the 1950s and 2000 now.
They just asked me to put my pole that I won 2 gold medals on in the Ranger Baseball Hall of Fame down in Arlington, Texas. I'll take that pole and I'll give it to Bubka or any of these modern athletes, Lohr and so forth. Bobby Seagren, you take my pole and you jump 15.6 with it, and I'll give you $10,000. They can't do it. Now, don't misunderstand me, but fiberglass is a spring, and when you load the pole and get back on it, it throws you up about 5 feet higher than what we did. It's like trampoline in gymnastics. Now, I'm not bitter, and I'm simply saying that you can't talk about the kind of pole that I used, and if you ever use it once, you'll respect what it is to jump on a stiff pole. I just was out, they named me vaulter of the century out in Reno, Nevada, and they had some girl pole vaulters there. And they're using fiberglass, and they're going 15 feet. Same height I won the Olympics, and the girls are just going over it, and boy, they're waving, and it looks so good. I told my wife, I said, I'd love to put that aluminum pole out there and say, now jump 15 feet with this. It's a whale of a difference. See, it's like jumping on a spring compared to you lift yourself up. Now, the thing you have to realize about all modern sports is it's high tech. I used to call gymnastics, and I'll never forget the day that I looked at the mats and there were rubber springs inside the mats. Well, the gymnasts I knew had to do it on bare ground and concrete. Now they got springs in there so they can do flying fliffs and triples and everything. Just like Tiger Woods. He hits golf balls now 350 yards. Well, you couldn't hit a golf ball 40 years ago, but 250 yards, that was average. Well, look what that does. And now they got clubs that won't slice, won't hook. I mean, you talk about high tech. Most of modern sports is high tech. Now, don't get mad, but I think they've souped up the baseball, so there's more home runs, and that brings in more people into the stands. And records vary with the mechanisms and the built-in help. You know what a fast track is? We used to compete on cinders. Now they got rubber tracks that bounce you all the way down there. They got pools. Johnny Weissmuller used to swim when water would come up and it was rough water and from the splashing. Now the water goes off in front of him. They call them fast pools. Well, see, it's different. You can't compare records then with records now.
I think that's what makes it all the more interesting that, in your case, your career was as long as it was because you were competing in 48, 52, and then 56 you came back and won another gold medal, the only person to get 2 gold medals in vaulting.
I was the first one to train all year round, and I probably was the first one to stay in that long. But the reason I did it was for fitness and health. Now we realize you can compete till you're 80. You can keep your body in shape. I've been part of the Masters Track program. But I think it's wonderful that we have this point of view. But there's something happening now in sports. People go into sports now for money. We didn't do it for money. We did it for the love of the sport. Now laugh if you want, but I believe in that. I think you compete in sports for what it does for you psychologically and physically, and you do it because you love it, and you do it forever. You do it till you die. You stay in shape. The body's made for action. Your muscles, your bones, your heart, your eyes, everything's made for action. And if you don't take care of that, you stop seeing, you get weak. And I just believe in fitness till you die.
You're 74 now?
Yeah.
And you're still getting around pretty darn well, it looks like?
Well, I've got a bad knee I've got to get fixed, but I'm going to go right back in jumping. And I've done the decathlon at 70, and I hold weight pentathlon records, throwing the hammer and stuff, and I just love it. And I play golf, and I walk as much as I can. But anyway, what I'm saying is, I want to burn out. I don't want to rust out. I want to burn out. I love that statement of Jack London. I'd rather be ashes than dust. I'd rather my spark go out in a burning flame than that it be stifled with dry rot. I'd rather be a meteor blazing across the sky, every atom in me in magnificent glow. That's my philosophy. Jack London, I love that.
You obviously had a good role to play as a motivational speaker. How did that get started with it? Let me rephrase that, Bob. I remember seeing you on the Wheaties boxes. You were a spokesman. You knew the role that you could play as a role model, as an athlete, somebody that kids would look up to. How did you work that so that you could inspire other people to reach their potential?
Well, I kind of got into motivational speaking in the back door. I was in the ministry and I was preaching. That was one thing. But then I tell these sports stories about great athletes like Harold Connolly, withered left arm, wins a gold medal. No one expected him to. Shelley Mann, polio. And she works for months to get an arm out of the water. And she wins the Olympics in Melbourne. And tears just streaming down her face, red, white, and blue on the water, you know. What a story. Well, I started telling these motivational stories about people who overcame tremendous difficulties and defeats. And pretty soon I found out that they were inviting me to schools and insurance companies and corporations. I've spoken 128 times for IBM. That's the kind of motivation they want. You know, Watson said, motivate your people, pay them and motivate your people. Anyway, I found that the greatest secret of life is not what you're born with, but it's what you do with what you got. Now, like you say, I'm 5'10", 175 pounds. But by the way, Mickey Mantle and Willie Mays was 5'10", 175 pounds. A lot of great athletes were small, but they were tremendous athletes. I got into motivational speaking, and by the way, one of the things that really kind of bothers me, they all talk, I'm a member of 7 Halls of Fame in sports, but I'm a member of 3 speaking halls of fame, National Speakers Bureau, the Toastmasters International, and the business men's thing in St. Louis. But I think speaking after you do something and motivating other people, taking a message of success to other people and conquering to other people, that this is more important than the conquering itself. There's something more important than just pole vaulting a record or shooting a basket or throwing a football. Use your life, and forgive me for getting religious on you, but let your light so shine so that others might see it and glorify God. I mean, pass the torch along. I like to think that an athlete who becomes great should be a keeper of the flame. He should tell others why. Now, the biggest failure of my life is I believe in living clean. I can't imagine why kids want to get on dope or booze or even cigarettes. I just can't imagine it. The body is so wonderful. And live clean. See, that's a message we need today. We need, and these kids without self-worth, you know, go and tell them what Watson says. There's 43 trillion cells in your body. You are the greatest universe. You're the greatest miracle there is. Use what you have. See, we need to go out and tell this to kids. The thing I love about sports is it enabled me to go tell kids to get a dream and live clean and work hard and believe you can. That's the greatest. And you know, that's what Plato thought that sports did. You go through gymnastics to get to mathematics and to the higher reaches of philosophy. And, you know, the Greeks also taught peace through sport. I mean, they had such a great concept of sports.
I'm going to pause for just a moment. I think we're definitely on the right track. I want to change tapes, though.
All right.
Okay.
35, 36, yep. 1.
Okay. All right. Let's contrast. We've contrasted the technology in sports, and you briefly alluded to the differences that money has made, the difference money has made in the sports. You've been in television, you've worked for Wide World of Sports, you've interviewed the greats and the near greats over many decades. How has the big dollar investment in sports and advertising and all changed things?
Oh boy, you're getting me now into some intricate stuff. And now I don't want to sound bitter, and don't get mad at me again, I say.
Oh, I won't.
But when we got farmers starving and not making it, and we pay athletes $20 million a year to shoot a basket or to hit a golf ball, there's something wrong in our values. There's something basically wrong. When we spend more for that than education or scientists, our values are warped. Now, I know Entertainment, these people get $20 million a film, and Jordan was making $100 million a year, and Tiger Woods made $100 million one year. And I know this, but I'm saying our schools are more important. Water's the greatest thing in the world. We need more dams. We need to grow food. The farmer, now I'm not a farmer. I own a ranch, but we've got to take care of our farmers. They're the bread and butter of the world. And we need to get caterpillars and level the ground, and all of this Midwest should be nothing but growing food. We should have dam after dam and canals and saltwater conversion things. We should really get serious. There's 6 billion people in the world nearly. I went through India when there were 600 million. Now there's 1 billion. There's 2 billion people in China. Now we talk about the starvation in Africa and so forth. If we ever get really centered on a just and good society and what mankind can do to help, we're going to have to start dealing with basic values. So money is the secret, but you should spend it for good things. Now, for example, space is a marvelous thing. We're going to go to Mars, 2012, they're predicting. You realize what's happening out there? This is the greatest time to be alive in certain respects, but to blow our money in booze and just watching sports or watching a movie, I don't see it. We need to get scientists, we need to get greater teachers, we need to get more great books and great, I mean, there's ways to spend money that are better than what we're doing.
Yeah,
now, do you agree or disagree? I'm just curious.
I agree. The money, too, pushes people to do things that they probably shouldn't. You have the performance-enhancing drugs, the blood doping, all of these things. Yeah. That takes a toll on it, too.
Well, if what you're talking about is roids in sports, this is another bad thing. Because, see, the money, why do they take roids? To get the money. You see, if I'm a 200-pound football player and the guy comes and says, now, if you were only 300 pounds, I'll pay you more. Well, the guy starts taking roids to get 300 pounds. But that in itself, see, you're pushing the sports category too far. We shouldn't be giving that kind of money for athletes or for comedians. Just think of comedians, 20 million a picture. Just think of that. Anyway, I don't want to get negative, but what I'm saying is, in a rational society, in a good society, we should push things that enhance the life of everybody and which solve the problems of the earth. And those are gigantic, and we've got to start looking at them. For example, World War II was started because they wouldn't print money. Worldwide depression, Germany went under. And look, out of it comes this horrendous war where 60 million people died. Take the Cold War. How many trillions were spent on the Cold War? Now Russia is sinking. We should help them because that Cold War and the possibility of total annihilation is so serious, we should help them out of their problems. If we had helped Germany, there would have been no World War II. Now, people disagree with me in my point of view, but I'm saying if you spend money and print money in the right time and the right place, you can avoid horrible consequences. The other night they had the program on fail-safe. Well, I mean, what could be more lunatical than 3,000 hydrogen bombs to destroy the earth and 3,000 missiles to deliver? And we sit by and let this just happen when we got the sense to know better.
One of the other laureates from last year, Stansfield Turner, who was the CIA director, naval admiral, has been working on that. I think we had somewhere in the neighborhood of, at one time, something like 70,000 nuclear warheads.
Oh, God. Yeah, well, it's even worse. But I remember a spaceman saying once that we're going out in space because we're going to have to take people out there and populate the universe. Now, it may sound like a wild idea, but I can remember when Flash Gordon and Buck Rogers was a wild idea, and they are doing it. They're on the moon, and they're taking pictures of Mars, and they're going out there. And isn't it funny? Russia and the U.S. are cooperating in the space race. I think that's amazing. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is, if we use our heads, there's a solution to every problem mankind is facing. And that means food and water and maybe going out in space to find places for everybody.
I've had a wonderful time with this conversation. You're an inspiring person. I'm wondering, as you look back, you've had so many honors, so many thrills and wonderful experiences. What has been the most satisfying thing in Bob Richards' life? It's brought the most satisfaction and reward.
There are so many marvelous. I've lived 1,000 lives. I've had 6 wonderful children. I've had babies in my hands. I've known the love of a beautiful woman. I've known the presence of God. I've hobnobbed with the greatest people that ever lived. You'd be absolutely amazed who I have met through speaking and in space and all this, going across in the Olympics and goodwill tours. And I've met the greatest people in the world. I have to say that the philosophy of Abraham Lincoln has been a great influence in my life. I discovered him. Here I'm a native of Illinois, but I discovered Abraham Lincoln, the rail splitter, the hard worker. Think of what he can say for our time. With malice towards none, with charity for all. Let us bind up the nation's wounds. With the direction of God to help us see the light as to what is right, let us go forth. The government of the people, for the people, by the people, shall not perish. Boy, you talk about a dream. That thin, tough Illinois pioneer, splitting rails, honest lawyer, and a dream he had for America to unify this whole country. I mean, boy, what I'm trying to say is to have lived in a land where he was the hero, where Harold Osborne was the hero, where learning was the heroic, where Plato and Aristotle and Einstein. Think of Einstein. To know what is impenetrable to us really exists, manifesting himself as the highest wisdom and the most radiant beauty. That's theology for me, boy. And I've been able to live in a world where I can know these things.
And in a world where there are still heroes like you. Thank you very much. Do you think we got to all the good parts?
I don't know. I don't think there's anything left.
Okay, no problem. No problem. Yeah, that's one more thing for safety there. Well, Bob Richards, thank you so much.
Thank you, Jack,
Pleasure.
for pulling out the best I've got.
Wonderful. I think we need to sit here for just a second more so we
right.
can have a little tales to roll our credits over.
Okay. We got to give credit, don't we?
Yeah. Well, I really do appreciate the opportunity to sit and talk with you. It's been
Thank
a lot
you.
of fun. A lot of fun.
If you know me, part of my philosophy of life is to try to share the best you can come up with.
Well, you certainly have. And what we'll do when this is all over, we will make a 1-hour program with all 6 of the laureates in the ceremony this evening, and we'll weave it all together, and that'll go to all the public TV stations in the state. There are about 11 of them, starting in Carbondale, in my end of the state, and Chicago, WTTW, and all in between.
Sure.
And then we'll make sure that you get a copy of that down in Texas. And once I get all the pictures taken from your photographs and everything, I'll turn those around too, and you'll be getting those back pretty soon.
Okay.